Boy, do we have a lot to talk about today on this episode of Champ Sunday with myself, Jake Maverick. Appreciate you all tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about the continued struggles for OpTic Texas. We're also going to talk about a Reddit post I saw that I thought was pretty interesting, kind of comparing LA Thieves and Vanguard versus OpTic Texas right now in BO6. We're also going to go over Minor 2 and sort of talk about especially the first round of matchups, because I think those 4 matchups are pretty interesting. And then I'm going to give you 5 players that I think have turned their game around the most so far in this stage through the first 2 weeks of Major 2 qualifiers. And then, of course, we're going to end with the Ask Jake segment, as we always do. So once again, appreciate you all tuning in. If you're not already subbed, we're on the road to 8K subs, so make sure to hit the sub button. Let's just get right into it and talk about OpTic Texas and the struggles they've been having recently. I talked about this in my last video. Every content creator in the scene has talked about this probably the last couple weeks, so we're not going to go into the same, details and rants we've gone on already. But what I did do was I went through their stats for each player through these first 3 matches of this split. Then I also went back to the end of Minor 1 and got their stats from then till now. So it was their last 9 matches, just to kind of demonstrate what's been going on with this team, right? Because obviously Kenny has gotten the most flack, right? He has been the one who has been underperforming all year long when it comes to the things you see on the scoreboard. And even when you watch the gameplay, right, he has definitely been their worst player, right? I'm confident in saying he has not been nearly the best. He's probably been their worst player. But also, the things he said on stream about, maybe why they dropped HAVOK, and many people took it as him blaming HAVOK for them losing. I personally didn't see it that way, but some people took it that way. So, I'm not going to tell you if that's how you take it, that's how you take it, right? But so Kenny's been getting the flack, but to just kind of demonstrate how poor the form has been for this entire team, right? Obviously, other than watching the matches and watching the minimap and seeing that they're just not all there, which we're going to touch on, looking at the stats so far this split, right? So just in Major 2 quals in their first 3 matches, Kenny's sitting on a 0.67 with a 70 Slayer rating, which is obviously super. I mean, everyone knows a 0.67 is super low, but a 70 Slayer rating is really low in this game. Dashy's sitting on a 0.8 with a 76 Slayer rating. Pred is on a 0.95 with an 84 Slayer rating. And Shotzi's on a 0.94 with an 87.5 Slayer rating. So the numbers for every single player have greatly gone down, right? Dashy and Shotzi were like 1.2s earlier this year. Kenny was at like a 0.8-ish, right? He's obviously down. And even Pred was positive in the very few series he played, right? If you look at HAVOK, he was like 1.2, 1.3. So obviously the numbers are down individually for OpTic. But then going back to Minor 1. So like I said, this is their last 9 matches. So this was their first match back after Minor 1 up until now. Kenny's on a 0.85, Dashy's on a 0.94, and Shotzi's on a 1.05. Right, 1.05 is fine. I would take a 1.05, especially for a guy that can have the impact on the map like Shotzi does, right? Especially once you bring Pred back, if he's kind of the guy that's going like a 1.2 because he's getting more kills and playing his life, that works. So Shotzi though, but I will say obviously Shotzi has taken a step back. Like I said earlier, he was sitting at like a 1.2, and like I say in every video, KD isn't everything, but these are general numbers that casual fans and diehard fans understand to just sort of paint the picture, right? So it's not going to paint the full picture, but it's a little bit just to kind of help people understand. Kenny, though, 0.85 in the last 9 is just not going to cut it. You want to see that up above a 0.9 probably, especially if they're winning. Above a 0.9 is not the end of the world. But Dashy really, I feel like, is the biggest one, right? He's sitting at a 0.94 in their last 9 matches, when previously he was kind of looked at as undisputedly the best AR in the game, right? I mean, this guy was a 1.2, 1.3. His Slayer rating was well above a 90. I mean, he was killing everything. He was doing everything. And now it's just not the same. Now there's different trains of thought, right? And philosophies around why they might be struggling. People have been saying like Dashy's been hung out to dry. I think Crim6 might have said this, that like Dashy's just kind of getting left in the hill and his teammates are dying around him. And then he's basically in a disadvantageous position, right? Like what is he supposed to do when he's trying to hold hill time and his teammates are all dead? So obviously there's that thing. But when you watch the way OpTic play, and especially in the respawns and especially in the hard points, they're just not playing together at all. I mean, they're genuinely playing like they are a 4-stack of ranked players. They're not hitting things together. They're not setting up properly when they do win a rotation and get the hill. They're going in 1 by 1 and dying. It's really bad, honestly. If you watch the minimap and the way that they try to retake things, the way they try to break things, and I apologize if you hear any honking or anything out there. They're doing construction and stuff, and I don't know what's going on, but they just look really bad. They're not getting trades. The respawns look poor, and obviously for this team last year, SND was their crutch. It was their worst mode for sure. And of course, it just has not looked good either, right? I mean, they are 0-9, and they are on they're 0-9 map count this split, and they're on a 12 map loss streak, right? Because if you go back to the Major, they won map 1, and then they lost the next 3 to the Royal Ravens. So OpTic's on a 12-map loss streak, which I think is only a few away from tying the record. They would have to get 3-0'd by the Falcons in round 1 of the minor in order, I think, to tie the map loss streak record. So we're going to talk about that, but it's probably unlikely the Falcons 3-0 them. OpTic's just in a spot right now where they need to get their confidence up. I don't know if they have bad vibes in the camp. I have no inside intel. I know people have speculated this. I'm not really going to like speculate, but obviously there's always that possibility. I think they just need to keep their head down, stay off the internet, stay off social media, just lock in and go into this Falcons matchup like 100%. Like, don't underestimate the Falcons at all. Go into this, slam them, give yourself the confidence to be like, look at how good we can be. Like, yes, you're playing Falcons, but look at how good we can be and how fundamental we can play, right? Just like actually doing the right things and playing together. And I think it sets them up for success. If they can make a run at the minor, similar to what FaZe did last minor and last stage, it just sets yourself up so much better. That momentum. The cool thing about the minor, I think this is like a random cool thing that people haven't talked about, is making a run at the minor is like one weekend where you can win 3-4 matches in a row and kind of like build that confidence quickly rather than only playing 1 or potentially 2 qualifier matches in the weekend. You could play 4 matches, right? And actually build your confidence. So similar to what FaZe did, I'm sure is what OpTic Texas and their fans want them to do here in minor 2 next weekend. Or this weekend, technically. But I want to talk now about this Reddit post because, like I said, this is from Kenu_60, KENUU_60, posted kind of, it was sort of like a mini comparison to LAT and Vanguard versus OpTic Texas now, because obviously Kenny was on the LAT Vanguard team that struggled the first half of the year and then ended up being the best team undisputedly by the end. And OpTic fans obviously would love that to be the case here for OpTic Texas, right? Pretty bad right now, but then hopefully the best team by the end of the year. And his post was essentially LAT and Vanguard were the exception, not the rule. A lot of people are sort of saying like, OpTic's going to be fine. OpTic's going to be fine. Look at LAT and Vanguard. They made a little role swatch. Maybe you just swap Kenny and Pred and they'll be good. They'll figure it out, right? And obviously as a fan, right, as a fan of OpTic, I would hope that is your mindset, right? I'd hope you're being optimistic. I err on the side of optimism. So I think that's a good way to look at it, right? But we've never seen a team win champs, keep the roster, and then win an event the next year in the entirety of COD history up until Vanguard into MW2 with that LA Thieves team. That is what was called the champs curse, right? Every team before that, from 2012 to 2021, right? So 9 years, 10 years, every team before that that won champs went into the next year and didn't win an event or made a roster change, and then maybe they won an event after that. But the same core 4 that won the champs, or core 5, if you go back to, you know, BO4 into MW, they didn't stick together and win an event after winning champs up until Vanguard, where LAT obviously won Major 4, won champs, stuck together, and then won Major 4 in MW2 the following year. They were the first team to break the champs curse, right? Pretty awesome. I mean, obviously awesome for me as an LAT fan to see that and to say my team's the only one to do it. But they truly are the exception, right? When you have 10, 12 years, right, of history from champs, right? So from 2012 to 2024, 12 years of history. And only one time has that rule been broken or that curse been broken. To kind of just assume or to think OpTic is going to do the same thing is definitely, I don't want to say faded, right? It's not a faded take because of course it's possible, but it's definitely like bold or like maybe like a slightly misplaced trust that they're just going to also break the curse, right? Just because Kenny's on this team like he did with the Vanguard into MW2 LA Thieves team. So I agree with the post, right? I agree. LAT and Vanguard, they were the exception, not the rule. And I also agree that like it's possible OpTic can also be the second exception, the second team to break the champs curse, of course. But this leads me to my next spot where it's like LAT and Vanguard, they had the role swap, right? Droz and Kenny swapped. They also brought in Shane as an assistant coach halfway through that year, which I believe they brought him in Major 3, which is where they really started to turn it around. This thing, I think those two things together, I think are part of the reason LAT turned it around. And I really think bringing Shane in to help be a coach with JCap is underrated in terms of what happened with LAT's season. Because yes, Kenny turned into an MVP player, Major 4 and champs when he went back to the sub. We know what Kenny can do as an SMG, obviously, back in the beginning of his career on TK, just how good he was. But like bringing in another coach sometimes just really help the team. I mean, look at OpTic last year, right? They haven't like confirmed this, right? But it's been pretty much confirmed by anyone who knows source or has sources behind the scenes that they brought in Lamar Accuracy to sort of help coach and help guide the team into champs last year after the horrible Major 4 finish that they, of course, had. And they ended up winning champs. Sometimes having that outside perspective can help you because as a core 4 of players with 1 or 2 coaches, in OpTic's case, they obviously have Karma and they obviously have JP, you sort of all are going to view the game in a similar way the longer the year goes on because every day you're in practice together, every day you're doing VOD sessions together, and you might have some disagreements and some differences here and there, but generally you're probably going to have the same thoughts and the same criticisms and the same feedback as your teammates and as your coaches if you're the same group that's been together for over a year at this point, right? You probably know how you guys want to play COD. And now in BO6 with a different game, sometimes the outside perspective just, it'll help, man. It really will. And Haggy Parasite on the flank has talked about this, and he kind of got clowned, I think, the first time he said this. People are like, you know, what is Haggy talking about? Laggy, right? They're giving him L's in the chat. I think to an extent, he's right, man. Like, I think sometimes just having an outsider that, of course, has good knowledge of the game come in and sort of just say, like, okay, this is what I think you should do, or this is how I think the best teams are playing, or, you know, this is what should be happening on the map, how you should be setting up. Sometimes those little bits, just that one thing they say might be the turning point, might be the key to unlocking something for this OpTic team. So generally what I'm trying to say is I really hope OpTic turn it around. I mean, people that maybe haven't watched a lot of my content don't know this. I was an OpTic fan before I was a Thieves fan. I just followed NADESHOT to Hunter T when he started the org. So I rooted for OpTic from the beginning of my fandom all the way up until like 2016, 2017-ish, right when Hunter Thieves started. So I want to see OpTic succeed, man. I really, really do. And we know how talented this team can be. And I'm pulling for him, but right now it's looking really bad. And now before we talk about Minor 2, I want to real quick just remind you to check out Agent Picks. Agent Picks is one of my partners around here. They're like Prize Picks or Underdog, but they got even more lines. You can bet on KD, damage, first bloods, whole bunch of cool things on there. This past weekend, we made like over $200. I think we made like $250 on our bets, which was pretty cool. So definitely shout out Agent Picks. Use code MAV at sign up if it's available in your state. Get up to a $100 deposit match and a 3% winnings boost. So everything you win, you get a 3% boost just for using my code. So check them out. The link's in the description. But let's talk about Minor 2, right? Because the second Minor ever, technically, in CDL history, but the second Minor of this year is coming up this weekend. And if you want my full bracket prediction, we're going to be doing it on the Around the CDL podcast that I do with my 2 co-hosts, Alex and Preston. We're going to be live tonight on Monday night doing the picks. So maybe when you're watching this, we're currently live, and if you're watching this on Tuesday or Wednesday, the VOD should be uploaded on my channel with timestamps, so definitely check that out if you want to see my full predictions. But I really want to talk about the first round, because obviously, 1, I mean, we know the matchups for the first round, right? And then 2, I think there's some really interesting ones in here. So first up, Breach versus Surge. It should be Surge, right? Like, Surge should win this. They look really good right now. Boston is just super hard to predict. Snoopy's been good, but Purge has been much worse this split. Awakening is just still Awakening. He's not really doing a whole lot. Cammy's been a little bit better, but has also had a series where he dropped like a 0.5. So unless Boston just lock back into Major 1 online form and Purge is dropping a 1.1, 1.2, I'm thinking Surge and Neptune are going to slam these guys. So I'm going to be taking Surge in that one. Rocker versus Cloud9, honestly, could be the best matchup here in round 1. Winner of this plays LA Thieves too, which also puts for a really good matchup, right? A top team versus a dark horse that's looking good right now. Both of these teams are solid at all 3 modes. Rocker, for me, I genuinely think Rocker only win this if Nero is slamming. When Nero is having an off series like he did versus Ravens, they just get destroyed. Like, they just got 3-0'd by the Ravens. But when Nero is cooking, like, not even like 1.5 cooking, or like, it doesn't have to be that great, but 1.1, 1.2 with the things Estrel does and Geo and Paul Lex has been much better. As long as Nero is like good enough that he's going positive in the respawns, I think Rocker can take this, but Cloud9 looks really, really good right now. Sib is significantly better. Kremp is playing better. Attach is playing better. Mac is still just being Mac. So this is, I think, going to be a banger. Then we got Heretics versus LAG. And I guess just to give you a prediction for that next one, honestly, I don't know who would actually predict over Rock or C9. I probably have to look at the map set or like the potential maps that I think they might play. So genuinely, I don't know my pick'em's going to be there. I'm going to have to look into that before we do the podcast tonight. Heretics versus LAG should definitely be Miami, right? LAG just don't look good. Now, Priesta is apparently stepping in for Skies this weekend, so, like, maybe they look a bit better, but I just don't trust LAG, especially in Search and Destroy, and these teams literally just played each other this past weekend, and Miami, of course, won this, and I think they 3-0'd them, right? Was this a 3-0 here for Miami over LAG this past weekend? So it should probably be Heretics again, but maybe bring Priest in for Skies with Lunars now could make this team better, but LAG's chalked too many of my pick'ems this year already for me to pick them again. And last but not least, it is OpTic Texas versus the Falcons. You know I had to save this one for last, right? I got to get that viewer retention on the video so YouTube pushes it out to more people. I hope you understand. But OpTic versus Falcons is going to be a good one, right? Like, it's going to be a good one for one of two reasons. Either A, it's going to be competitive because OpTic have just not been good. Or B, OpTic are going to slam, and it's just going to be cool to see them rebound. But either way, the series should be good. Obviously, OpTic should win this. There are people, we were talking about this in my watch party all weekend, that genuinely think Falcons are going to win this or have a very good chance to win this series. I'm personally not one of those people. I think OpTic will win this series. I feel very confident in that, even with how bad they look. Because at the end of the day, Falcons don't know what they're doing in Respawn, and especially in Hardpoint. They have not won an HP. They're like 0-19 in Hardpoint, right? And I know OpTic look bad, and I know OpTic's teamwork and their holds and their breaks look awful right now. But at the end of the day, like, they should just be able to skill diff them, right? Like, Shotzi and Pred should just be able to just run these guys. And even if they don't play together, you should imagine those guys can still pop a two-piece here and there, and you're just going to win this off of skill diff. Now, if OpTic slip up, especially in the Hardpoint map 1, this gets really scary because Falcons are a quality SND team. They might play a little bit weird or a little bit not the way you typically see a lot of these other NA, EU teams play SND, but they're a good SND team. And in Control, I mean, they've only won Vault Control, right? They haven't won a Hasi or a Protocol. You never know if OpTics, for some reason, play Vault, because OpTic also like Vault. Maybe there's a chance Falcons could take 2 maps this series. But for me, I don't see OpTic losing this. I see this being a chance for them to get a little bit of confidence. I mean, after this, they'd have to play the Toronto Ultra, which is, of course, a tough matchup. But listen, at the end of the day, I mean this genuinely. If OpTic lose to Falcons, they're going to make a roster change. Like, I actually truly believe that. If OpTic lose to Falcons in Minor 2 Round 1, they are going to make a roster change. There's just no other way about it. You cannot be the first team to give Falcons a hardpoint or a series win, right? I know OpTic look bad, but I just think they're going to win this. Maybe I'm blindly faithful that they're going to turn it around, but Falcons are the worst professional level Call of Duty team we have ever seen. I've been watching COD since 2011. I've never seen a team at the pro level this bad before, so I got OpTic in this one. But Minor 2 should be a banger, man. I'm really excited to watch. I'm going to be live watch partying all weekend, so if you want to just tune in, maybe watch the LA Thieves matches with me, if you're a fellow LAT fan, definitely check it out. We're live here on the channel. But it should be a FaZe LAT grand final, probably. Hopefully LAT take it, but both of those teams matching up should always provide for a good series. But now I want to talk about the biggest players, or the players that have had the biggest turnaround so far through Major 2 qualifiers, right? We're 2 weeks in, and there's been a bunch of players that have looked much better, but I picked 5 that I think have had the biggest turnaround from stage 1 or Major 1 up until now with these first 2 weeks of the quals. So number 1 for me is Sib. Sib has had probably the biggest turnaround, a 1.25 KD, 91 Slayer rating, a 1.28 in Control, a 1.3, or 1.28 in Hardpoint, a 1.3 in Control. If you've watched Cloud9, not only has the team looked much better, but Sib looks so much better. Like, he looks like what you expect Sib to be. And we saw them talk about this in his interview post one of their wins this weekend, where, like, he feels like they finally all understand their roles. Attach is getting in the hill now, and he feels like that frees him up to play his game and be his best. And we're seeing that. Attach is getting more hill time, and Sib is getting more kills, and that is overall making the game easier for Kremp and Mac, and is making the game winnable for Cloud9, right? Because they're finally getting wins. Another player that has had a massive turnaround is Nasty, bro. Nasty has looked so good since Neptune joined this Surge roster. 1.11 KD, 90 Slayer rating, 1.12 in HP, and a 1.24 in Search. He has just been so much better. He was honestly a player who I think, like, many people probably had him on, like, the chopping block for Surge to potentially be replaced. If they were to do a 2-man change, people thought it would be Nasty and Hixie. But Nasty's turned it around greatly. He's just looked so much more comfortable on the map and so much more impactful. And also, 04 and Abuza have just both been better as well. So when a guy like Neptune comes in and as good as he is, it's just going to make the game easier for everybody else on the team. Another guy that has turned it around greatly is Paul X, dude. He looks so much better. He's probably like the number 1 AR people thought was going to be dropped coming into this split, right? Maybe one of the LAG guys or one of the Boston guys, but Paul X was without a doubt the what's the word I'm looking for? The odd one out on the rocker team, right? Because Nero, Geo, and Estriel have been all really, really good. But Paul's sitting at a 1.02 KD and 93 Slayer rating and a 1.17 in search. They've talked about this already. They brought Paul in to be the SND guy, and he's finally doing that for the team. And when he's playing better, the whole team looks much better. So Paul X, major shout out to him. The dude was popping Zins after winning SND rounds. He was locked in this past couple weeks. And then we get to the last two here. Number 4, this really isn't in any order. I know I'm saying like number 1, number 2, but it's just 5 names. Number 4, I have Neptune. I know he didn't play already, but I think he's exceeded expectations. Most people knew he was going to be really good, especially with how good he looked in challengers. But I mean, 1.17 KD, 104 Slayer rating, a 1.14 in HP, and a 1.32 in control. He has made this team so much better. The Surge went from a team that was like kind of mid online, even though they did make winners bracket at Major 1, obviously was not good at Major 1, and now they're undefeated, right? Are they 3-0? Or I think they're 3-0 so far this split, right? They look so good. Neptune is just a walking two-piece. I don't think I've ever seen a guy flank and get more two-pieces in 1 week than I did with Neptune these past couple weeks. This guy is absolutely nasty at Black Ops 6, is without a doubt a top 5 player given current form right now, and if he keeps up a pace like this Surge team is going to be real nasty, really good dark horse, but I'm really excited to see what they're going to do on LAN at Major 2. And then lastly, I saved this guy for last because I think he had a big turnaround, but he's obviously still a really great player that was just bad in one mode. And I got Hydra. In the last split, SND was just by far his worst mode. He was really good in hardpoint and good in control, but he's sitting at a 1.25, 104 Slayer rating, a 1.44 in search with 1 kill per round average right now. I mean, this is like the Hydra people thought that they were going to see in Black Ops 6 with the movement and the gunplay and just how good Hydra is. He is looking elite right now with how well he's been playing in every single mode, but the SND was obviously the big one, the big turnaround, hence why I'm mentioning him in the video. The dude just looks so much more comfortable, and maybe it's got to do with the Jackal nerf, right? Maybe the Jackal nerf has kind of allowed the elite SMGs to step up, right? I mean, Simp looks even better than he already did. Hydra looks even better than he already did. We've also seen some other guys kind of take a step back. We've seen Kleenex kind of fall off a little bit. Tej fall off a little bit. Obviously, the OpTic guys are struggling, but that's more of a team thing, in my opinion. We've kind of seen the Jackal nerf sort of make some SMGs that were really good in stage 1 worse, and make some of the more elite SMGs like Simp, like Abizi, like Hydra look much better. So there could be something to be said about that, but that's just me speculating. I'm just happy to see Hydra looking really good and LAT looking really good because I want to see my boys make some runs, maybe win the minor, and definitely win Major 2 because I'm going to be there in person in the front row. So look out for me on the broadcast. And now it's time to round out the video with the Ask Jake segment. If you got questions for me to answer in next week's episode, drop them in the comments on this video. But I only found 1 question from last week. So if I missed your question, I apologize. Feel free to just copy and paste on this video. But I got 1 question here. It's from my guy SJ, who asked, if the league got an expansion, what orgs would you like to see get spots, right? There's a bunch of orgs that have expressed interest, right? There's, teams like Complexity, Gen G, Envy obviously is now a thing. So maybe like the Dallas Empire, they wouldn't be Dallas, but Envy/Empire could come back into the mix. Obviously, I'd love to see other EU orgs like Fnatic or NIP enter the picture. Omit, I would love to see, right? If you don't know, I'm a part of Omit Brooklyn, who's a great challengers team. Rafi, the owner of Omit, just knows what he's doing, and he knows how to treat his players and the people in his org. I just think Omit would just do great things for the scene. And like any of those orgs, honestly, I'd love to see. Like, we need expansion. I don't think we're going to get it, honestly. Like, I don't think we're going to get expansion. I think, if anything, we'll get to more of a pro-am type of thing rather than expansion, where maybe like a couple challengers teams can qualify into the majors. But ultimately, I just don't see expansion, at least not in this coming year. I feel like there'd be leaks or something, right, if that was going to happen. So there hasn't been anything, so I'm not going to bank on it, but I'd love to see some of those orgs in the mix. But yeah, man, that is going to do it for this episode of Champ Sunday with myself, Jake Maverick. I hope you all enjoyed. Like I said earlier, we're on the road to 8K. Honestly, when you're watching this, we could have hit it. We're only like 40-ish away. So if you haven't subbed to the channel, drop a sub for more CDL content. Hopefully, I'll see you guys in the podcast, in future videos, and in the watch party this weekend for Minor 2. But I appreciate the love and support you all have been showing me. And yeah, man, hopefully I'll see you all in the next one.